first get your name on your social studies newspaper. Now, looking at this newspaper that we're going to look through, we'll try to get it all done in these next 3 days. But look up here in this right-hand corner. Do you see what that says? Slavery. Do you know what slavery is? What is slavery?
It means like people have to do other things for others that can't do, that don't want to do it.
Yeah.
They can do it, but they don't want to do it.
Do they get paid to do that?
No.
No. Was there slavery in America?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's going to be a lot of the things that we talk about in this newspaper.
And it was only the black people that had to slave,
Yep, the black people were slaves.
and the white people were the people that made them be slaves.
Exactly. Were they treated well?
No.
No, not at all. Okay, so let's start reading through this. We'll go section by section. Okay, look at this top part here. It says freedom for all. See what that has to say. The Constitution makes our country a democracy, but it did not give freedom to everyone when it was written. The Constitutional Convention almost fell apart when the North wanted to end slavery in the whole country. Slavery is forcing a person against his or her will to do work for little or no pay. The people of the South said the economy would fall apart if they did not have slaves. They needed the slaves to work in the fields, to pick tobacco and cotton. The two sides, talking about the people that lived in the north of the United States and the people that lived in the south of the United States, could not agree at all. The men who wrote the Constitution were afraid that the slavery issue would keep the Constitution from being ratified. That means from being passed into law. So the issue of slavery was dropped. But the issue was not about to go away. A free nation could not succeed when many of the people living there had no freedom at all. In 1807, the U.S. Congress passed a law that stopped people from bringing slaves into the country. But the law didn't stop the buying and selling of slaves within the United States, and it didn't free the slaves that were already here. Imagine what it would be like. At 9 years old, you would be expected to work from sun up to sundown in the fields. Would you like that?
No.
You think it's rough having to go to school? Imagine if you had to work from the time the sun came up, clear until the time the sun went down, every day, 7 days a week. Would that be hard? Could you imagine having to work out in a field?
And you don't get anything.
Yeah. And you're not treated well? That would be awful. It was hot and hard work. You would have no education because the slave owners didn't think slaves should be taught to read and write. And if your owner wanted to, he could sell you or any other member of your family to anyone, anywhere. Imagine, being split from your family, and being sold for money to someone else in a whole nother state. That happened a lot, you guys, to adults and children. It wasn't just the adults, it would happen to kids too. Would that freak you out?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would me, even as an adult. You would have no say at all if you tried to escape. Some owners would have you beaten, put in jail, or even killed. So this is where our story begins this week. We are a nation of being pulled apart, a nation based on freedom, denying freedom to many. Something has to give. All right, so look at this picture that's kind of through the middle of the front cover there. What do you notice about this picture? Amy?
Maybe it's all the slaves and then the owner of the slaves has the gun.
Okay, do you see the guy with the gun? Amy thinks that's probably the owner of the slaves. What are you thinking, Haley?
Yeah, you can kind of tell that they're slaves because all of them except for the owner look like really miserable.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing. Do they kind of have miserable, unhappy looks on their faces?
Yeah.
Does the guy with the gun look like he's very friendly? No. Anybody else notice anything else? Connor?
That one guy is holding a puppy that's black that shouldn't.
Okay.
It's a slave.
Oh, you don't think he should be holding that puppy? Okay. What do you notice?
The person who's holding the gun
Mm-hmm.
is white and the rest of them are black.
Exactly. Do you think he's a slave?
No.
No. Would he need a gun? Would he have a gun if he were a slave?
No.
No.
One of the black people are putting his hands up above his eyes.
Oh, yeah, like the sun's in her eyes or something maybe. Is that what you're seeing? Okay.
And that the man with the gun has nicer clothes than the rest of the people, but except for the one that has the puppy kind of has nice clothes.
Okay.
But there's like a lot more grown-ups than kids, so I'm thinking like some of the parents or the kids got sent away from their parents.
Maybe so. Okay. So let's look down at the bottom of this page where it says, "A slave no more." A letter written after the Civil War has shed light on the slave-master relationship. Jordan Anderson was a slave who gained freedom when he and his family escaped. Was that a safe thing for them to do? No, but did they get it done? Okay. Escaped to Ohio from Tennessee. In August 1865, his former owner, Colonel Anderson, wrote a letter asking Jordan to come back to Tennessee to work on his farm. Do you think he's going to?
No.
Why?
Because he doesn't want to be a slave anymore.
Okay. The former slaves reply, so he wrote back to his owner gave a clear message about his feelings. He said he hoped that God had opened the colonel's eyes to the wrongs done to slaves for generations. While he was glad his old master was alive, he was surprised that the Yankees hadn't hanged him yet. Because during this time, there was a civil war in America between the North, the people of the United States in the North part of America, and the people in the South part of America. And they fought in this civil war. Do you know why they were fighting? Do you know what started their fight?
The slavery.
Slavery. Yep. A fight. The North didn't think that there should be slavery in this country. The South did. And they couldn't agree on it, so they went to war. In our own country, they fought each other. And so, Jordan wrote that there was one thing that might bring him back to Tennessee. He and his wife wanted to be paid for the 52 years of combined work. So he and his wife together, if you add all their years together of being a slave, the two of them together, adding those years, were slaves for 52 years. Okay, of combined work that they provided as slaves, over $11,000. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot of money to us nowadays, but you're talking back in 1865 and earlier, that was a lot of money back then.
Like thousands.
Do you think that his former slave owner that he ran away from is going to say, sure, I'll pay you $11,000?
No.
You don't think so? Let's read to find out. Without that, he said that they had little faith in the colonel's promises. He ended by asking the colonel to give his best regards to a man named George Carter. Mr. Carter had apparently taken a pistol away from the colonel when he tried to shoot Jordan twice. George Carter was another slave. He was a black man. He tried to shoot Jordan that escaped twice. Reading letters and newspapers from the past can help us understand the people who lived during that time. Jordan and his family may have once been slaves, but their spirits were not broken. So, would you say that Jordan and his family went back to Tennessee?
No.
No. I would guess that they did not either. Would you want to go back? No. I'd be scared that I'd end up right back where I was before. Turn it to the middle part. Okay, and we have some different people in here. Do you recognize any of these people? Point to who you recognize. Okay, I see a lot of you pointing to him. Who is this? Abraham Lincoln. This lady right here is Harriet Beecher Stowe. And this gentleman over here is Frederick Douglass. Have you ever seen this lady before?
Yes.
Rosa Parks?
Oh, yeah.
I bet you have. All right, so we're going to be reading about these different individuals. What do you know about Abraham Lincoln? Because everybody was pointing to him. What do you know about him? What was he, everyone?
The president.
Okay, he was the president. And did you know, well, let me ask you this. Was he for slavery, meaning he wanted to keep slavery in the country, or was he against slavery? He wanted to get rid of slavery in the country.
What? Again.
He was against it. He did not want slavery in this country. Do you agree with Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah.
I certainly do. Okay, so I'm just gonna fold my paper like this. Make it a little bit easier. And let's take a look at Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born a slave. So he was born a slave because his parents were both slaves. So therefore, if a baby is born there, they're automatically a slave. They belong to the person that owns his mom and dad.
Can you even have babies in slavery?
They did. But they became the property of the slave owner. So he was a slave in Maryland, born a slave in Maryland in 1818. So that was over 200 years ago. When he was 8 years old, he was given to a slave owner named Hugh Auld and his wife Sophia. Sophia, now these are white people and they're slave owners. Did slave owners want their slaves to know how to read or write?
No.
No, but listen to this. Sophia taught Frederick how to read against the wishes of her husband. So was he kind of lucky
Yeah.
to have learned how to read? Right. Hugh believed that slaves should not learn to read and write. Frederick decided that he had to run away. In 1838, he was able to escape and settle in Massachusetts. So that was when he was 20 years old. So he was a slave for 20 years of his life.
That's not too bad.
At the age of only 23, he gave a speech to a group of abolitionists in the state he now called home. Have you ever heard that word, abolitionist?
No.
An abolitionist is a person that fights for slaves to have freedom. They want to abolish slavery. They want to get rid of it. It was such a great speech that one newspaper man said, "Flinty hearts were pierced and cold ones melted by his eloquence." That just means that he spoke very well and he changed the hearts of some people who didn't think the way that he thought. Frederick really valued education and never stopped learning. His education helped him be able to give really moving speeches about what it was like to be a slave. He went on to give speeches against slavery not only in America, but also in Europe. He even met with two presidents, Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson, during his fight for freedom and equality for African Americans. Another way Frederick fought against slavery was by publishing a newspaper called the North Star. The paper was named for the star that guided many slaves to freedom in the North. The North Star was an important anti-slavery newspaper. It included many articles written by Frederick himself. Frederick worked on the Underground Railroad as well. This was not a real railroad, but a series of safe houses called stations where runaway slaves could stay as they made their way north. These stations often had secret hiding places in the house or barn. Another famous conductor, a person who helped save slaves escape through the Underground Railroad, was, I bet you've heard of her, Harriet Tubman.
Yep.
She helped more than 300 slaves escape. Okay. We'll keep reading through this tomorrow. Go ahead and fold it up. And you can put that in your desk or in your crate or in a folder. It's up to you. Just remember where you put it.